Hello, friends, family, followers, and guests. Briefly, what a corporation is not is a real person. It's not. It's a fictitious person that's made up out of whole cloth and allowed by governmental entities and agencies at the state, federal levels, and perhaps in some instances even at the county level. Furthermore, a corporation in that allowance doesn't have to be formal. If it looks like a corporation, it acts like a corporation, and it walks like a corporation or waddles, then it is a corporation, with or without authorizing documents. So we take the corporation and we're going to give it documents for this discussion. We're going to put them in a folder. We're going to put that folder on the table right in front of us. We're going to let it lay there, and we're all going to walk away. And 1,000 years from now, we come back, and it is dust. Did that corporation ever really exist? The answer is no, it did not. Corporations operate through people and is controlled usually by a board of some kind, and oftentimes that includes shareholders. But it doesn't have to have shareholders, it doesn't have to have a board. But it's an artificial entity. It does not bleed. It does not breathe. There are a whole bunch of things that you and I do that it does not do and cannot do. It operates through those who have been put together to run it. Again, usually a president, vice president, a board, some entity like that. Excuse me. That which the government creates, the government can destroy. So corporations can be taxed, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly said that they can be taxed out of existence. That's what a corporation is. Can the creator give the corporation any more power than the creator has? And the answer is no, cannot. So if the creator, and in most situations this is going to be the truth of the matter, the ultimate creator, the one who allows the existence, will be either the federal or the state government. What does the federal and state government have that it can give the corporation? Well, it can give it privileges and benefits that reside in that particular government. But if it doesn't have it to give, then it can't give it to them. At least not legally. Who becomes accountable for the abuses of corporations? Generally, the people who run the corporation are the ones accountable for it. If the corporation is put together by shareholders, there's usually some provision that provides that shareholders won't be responsible for the bad acts of the corporation. And what that means is the president, vice president, those kinds of people, if they do bad things, the shareholders don't have to pay for it. That's generically true, but specifically in any one case may or may not be true. Can the corporation have rights that supersede the rights of the individual? In the world of rights, the answer is no. Most of the rights that are reserved to us, you and me, are just that. They're reserved to us. And corporations don't get to share in those. And the question becomes one of, when a corporation engages in abuses, how do we get compensated if we're the victim? The answer is pretty straightforward. We sue the corporation, we take its assets. A lot of people have corporations so that the corporation can suffer, but not them individually. They keep their personal shell away from the corporate shell. And most corporate granting entities allow that to happen. It's one of the privileges of the corporation. So a bunch of us get together for a real estate investment corporation. And for whatever reason, it goes tits up. And it fails. The people that we owed money to as a corporation, can they come back on us personally? And the answer is, if we have what's called the clean hands doctrine, if we have clean hands, if we weren't part of the real reason why it failed, all we had was a money interest, then the answer is no, they cannot come back through the corporation to us. They may be able to bust the corporation, but they won't be able to bust us individually. Those are some of the quick hits on what a corporation is, what it's not, and some of the limitations that belong to it. So can a corporation have inalienable or fundamental rights? And the answer is no. Not a qualified no, but an unqualified no. Corporations are creatures of the state. They exist at the whim of the state, and they can be destroyed by the state. So corporations do not have inalienable rights or fundamental rights. And remember, there's a difference. The Founding Fathers had collectively a lot of wisdom. They were not all Christians. But they recognized that whether we talk about inalienable rights, and those are rights that belong to us due to our existence, God-granted rights, or fundamental rights, which are rights that exist in us because of our existence. Whether inalienable or fundamental, those rights belong to us personally. None of those rights belong to a corporation. The government may grant them, but having granted them, the government can take them away like that. That was weak finger snapping. Let's try it again. I guess it doesn't work. Old weak fingers. Anyway, the government can take them away, boom, and they're gone. So those things that are inalienable and fundamental rights that are protected constitutionally under our republic belong to us personally, don't belong to the corporations. Can the corporations put exactions on those inalienable and fundamental rights? And the answer is no more than the government can. The government can't give them anything more than what it has. And therein comes the rub with what's been happening over this political season. And we've all seen it. The censorship from Facebook, Twitter, and Google. In the creation of the digital entities, there are some acts that were passed in the late 1990s that provide them special privileges and freedom from lawsuit for their existence, so on and so forth. They're allowed to have a group of policies and set up how they're going to conduct business. Here's where the rub comes, and these people, their leadership, are starting to feel it. And I don't think it should matter whether it's a D or an R. The Congress is not going to continue to put up with the abuses. And each of these organizations are going to find themselves being regulated, perhaps even busted up, because of the way they have conducted business. So rather than take that as a pundit statement or a Donda statement based on my understanding of the law and the training I have, perhaps we can take it as a prophetic statement, but not religious. Believe me, I have no illusions about that one. I guess this leads us to a natural ending place for this short video, far too long as it is. Corporations are not real people. They do not have fundamental rights. They do not have inalienable rights. They only have the rights granted to them by government, and government can take them away. Corporations, in the original concept of the founding fathers, and corporations is a European concept prior to our natural state and becoming a nation. They recognize that the corporations have the ability to collectively get a lot of money, and that those corporations to exist can use governmental privileges, and privileges, governmental privileges, not inalienable rights or fundamental rights, but privileges can be taxed, and corporations can be taxed out of business. They can be controlled. They can have rules, regulations, laws passed. And mark my words, someday the political shoe, of course, will be on the other foot. We've seen that pendulum swing many times historically. Whether we've actually noticed it in our lifetime may be another question. So the reality is, and it is a reality, when that pendulum swings, those corporations will scream about how unfair it is. Don't listen to them. Insist on your rights. Get with the attorneys that think outside the box. I've already thought of half a dozen different ways to actually sue. Corporations provide unilaterally their terms of service when we talk about the digital corporations. And a unilateral contract is considered oftentimes a contract of adhesion. When you're required in a contract to give up your fundamental rights or your inalienable rights, that contract has a very serious problem. Can a contract do that? And the answer is yes. We see it by the tens of thousands every day. In the military, you become the equivalent of an indentured servant, and you give up rights that you otherwise have under the Constitution to be in the United States Armed Services. But that's a whole nother discussion for another day. Right now, use this as foundational to watch what's happening and learn a little bit about corporations. I don't know if you'll be entertained by what's coming down, but you're going to see some fundamental changes. With that, I have rambled. Well, I haven't rambled. There's books written on this stuff, and we've just covered a small portion. But we've covered the key portions that once you understand those, you'll have a much better perspective of what's going on and what can and can't be done. I hope you all have a great time. By the time you've seen this, the election will probably be over, and so be it. We all get to live with whatever the result of that will be. I hope that you have peace, prosperity, and health for your loved ones and your posterity.